My space, your space. Your space, my space. Our space. One space, love. My space, your space. Your space, my space. Our space.
One Space Love podcast for the love of music, lifestyle and well-being while caring for our planet. On this podcast, I will be chatting with musicians, artists and creative minds that are living life on purpose while doing what they love.
Your space, my space. Our space. One space, love. One space, love. One space, love.
You're listening to One Space Love podcast and I'm your host, Stephanie Pappas. My next guest is Áine Tyrrell. She has been living over in Australia for almost a decade now. She's an Irish-born singer-songwriter and I was really looking forward to catch up with Áine. I've been watching her on social media and just seeing her get stronger and stronger with the messages that she's sharing and stepping into her power. She's releasing the day after we release this episode a song called We Call You Now. It's not a song, it's not a rap, it's not a spoken word. It is a powerful message downloaded through her in collaboration with all that's involved in this track. And we go straight in this chat and talk about it. And I really urge you all to go and get onto this link and support this track and see how it resonates for you. I love this chat. I just get more and more excited with each episode I do. There are so many powerful messages being shared with these creative souls just being able to step into the light and to be vulnerable to share their truth through their art. And Áine's definitely a woman who is doing that. So I hope you enjoy it. This is my guest, Áine Tyrrell. Welcome, Áine Tyrrell, to One Space Love podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. I feel like I'm getting to know you so much and I've spent a lot of time on socials watching you, especially during this experience that we're all experiencing as a collective. I found your music and your voice a lot of comfort in these times. So now having had the chance to weave back through, you know, how you got to be sharing the music that you are sharing so powerfully, I'm really excited actually to have you on the show. So thank you so much for saying yes.
Oh, well, thanks for digging deep into all this stuff as well. You know, it's, thank you.
No, you're very welcome. I start off all the shows by asking my guest if you could introduce yourself by completing the statement, I am. So if you could answer, I am.
I am Áine Tyrrell. In Irish, that's Ismisha Áine Tyrrell. And I do like to introduce myself as Gaeilge in Irish because I think it's important to touch back in with our native languages, whatever they may be. And touch back in with our ancestors and who we come from. So Ismisha Áine Tyrrell. I'm an Irish singer-songwriter based on Bundjalung country up in northern New South Wales at the moment. And due to lockdown, it looks like I'm here for the foreseeable little while. Yes. But I have spent the last few years travelling back and forth touring between Ireland and Australia. So I do get to get home a lot in the past life.
Yeah. Well, I was introduced to your music through a friend of mine who I've had on the show, James Boundy from Boundy Sound, and he was doing the sound for you at Black Lives Matter. And that's how I was introduced to you. Do you want to share like what events happened after that and how you got to bring out this track, We Call You Now?
It's beautiful. Bandy and I have I've known him since I moved up here. I think he did the first sound. I played at Mulla Music Festival and he was the first sound engineer. And you know, when you just, I don't know, as a musician, you meet a sound engineer that just totally gets you and you don't need to explain anything. They just like produce this magic sound. And when you're on stage and playing and you're in that comfort of that, you as a musician can reach much higher places. I don't know. It's like being
the
held.
space is held. Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, but he's always been so. Anytime we've tried to arrange to either have him do festivals for me or different projects where I could bring him on the road, we've always kind of like missed paths. Just like, you know, he's flying out to here and I'm going there, or I'll be playing one day and then he's not at that place. So when we went into lockdown up here, I was like, well, Bandy's here, at least I can work on sort of the craft of my solo set and maybe do some work with him. And so we were doing some work on my live streaming, and then I was asked to help out with the Banyara Culture Collective, who I've collaborated with a lot up here in the Northern Rivers. They're a brilliant Indigenous collective of artists and musicians and dancers and activists. And so when they asked, you know, and I was like, oh sure, I'll bring the sound, I'll do everything. And then I just said to Bandy, you know, maybe my skills mightn't be up for it. I'm going to bring my gear, but like, could you be there? They're expecting 50 people was what they expected. And I kind of was like, I reckon you're going to get like 250. But then it was like 3,000 people. And my goodness, were we happy to have Bounty there. And and then for me, they had asked me to sing at it. And at first I had said no, because I didn't think it was my place as a white woman to take up any space at that event, sharing a perspective that wasn't going to be helpful, if you know what I mean. Like the perspectives needed to come from the Indigenous collective there that were sharing their experiences. But they asked again, and I suppose I thought, yeah, well, for them, when they're holding this serious space the whole time, having something like music to let everyone take a breath, maybe an idea. And also, if there is something that I can bring to the conversation from a white person who has a colonized past, if I can speak to some people that their ears aren't open to the Indigenous perspective for some reason, even if it's just one person or something, I felt that I could stand there in support of their message rather than taking the time to spread anything I needed to spread or message. It was, can I stand there in support, I suppose, of their message? And because we had worked on a track before in this house with them about
amazing track,
which talks about a welcome to country and talking about that idea of what asking for permission is, you know, to come onto someone's land. And coming from Ireland, you know, there was not a lot of knocking on doors either, which is where the imagery from that song came from. And so I said yes to sing that song and stand there in support and help with the sound system and help with anything else that they needed, because I'm passionate about equality, you know, in all forms and shapes. And really, having lived in Australia, it is a jarring experience as an Irish person to live in an English colony, you know. Like straight away, that's just a jarring experience. And the more that I've lived here and the more that I've got to know and been privileged to understand and listen to the Indigenous experience more, the more I've felt connected to Australia, because I couldn't feel connected to it as an English colony. Like I just couldn't. It just was like, it is not an experience that I could.
A lot of people
connect
say
into. So I sang the track on the day and supported them in that way. And then as with anything, I suppose when you speak out or you stand up for something, there are people on the internet and on various places who perceive you to be one way or want you to be something, and then when you stand up for something else, um, they have other opinions of what you should be, I suppose, is the best way to describe it without putting down everyone, because I think everyone comes to their own learning at different times on everything, you know, and I don't like to discredit anyone with the chance to learn more. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, totally.
So yeah, I got some backlash for having supported that. I suppose the All Lives Matter argument was used, as well as it being in times of COVID, and why was I putting myself out and the community at risk, and why was I this and why was I that, and I sat with that for a little while. And then I think that We Call You Now came from a really deep place. Like, that was just the last thing that bubbled over inside of me, where I kind of was like, there is an experience in this country, the Irish Australian experience, that hasn't been spoke about enough, and in some ways, the experience needs to recognize the Indigenous experience, you know, and so all my emotions around being Irish, living here, mixed with the time that we're living in and what we are all being asked to do, I felt I had no other choice, in a way, than to kind of speak straight to these Irish Australians, because I should say that the people that confronted me about supporting that had some claim of Irishness to them, and so I kind of was like, this is a history lesson that hasn't been told in Australia for various reasons. And I didn't intend to write the track. I didn't intend for any of it. Like, it's completely different to anything I've ever done. It's like nearly 8 minutes long, and it's like spoken word, and it just kind of bubbled over inside of me. But I think it was all those experiences, and culminating in the fact that we can't stay silent anymore as white people, you know, like it's our duty hold.
You say it's your duty to take part. You're the daughters of rebels. You are the sons of poets. Remember who you are. Your ancestors knew it. We call you now. I hope I quoted that correctly, but
yes, thank you.
So well said. Yeah.
And I feel, I already know. I mean, I was speaking to my manager today, and we were like, I already know some people that have heard it have felt uncomfortable, like they're uncomfortable with it. And that's what art is meant to do. You know, it's meant to, from the discomfort, then we can start having conversations. And
real
she was like,
yeah.
What did she was like, you just in that, I need to be prepared. Like, as in, there's going to be people that take that uncomfortableness and then have a conversation about it, which is what has been happening on my Patreon community, where I have kind of a collective of people that support what I do, and so they get the track early and all that stuff.
Yes.
And they're really open to the conversations after it. But there are going to be some people that get this uncomfortable message and then lash out in the ways that people can when they have keyboards in front of them. So yeah, but I'm prepared for that uncomfortableness, because I just feel so deeply that we can't stay silent anymore. We can't stay in our comfort zones. Like, this is the result of people staying in their lanes. Do you know what I mean? Stay in your lane, stay in where you're comfort. As an Irish person, stay right there, you know. As an Indigenous person, stay right there. As a English person, you know. And I think, yeah, the drive behind it, or the kind of inner rumblings, just comes from the fact that
enough is enough. Yeah. No more can we be silent, which is very much what this time is about, isn't it? It's a time that I feel you've really taken hold of. You've really been at the forefront at this time, doing things to make a difference. I mean, if anyone,
thank you.
I always say, you know, what are your abilities? How can you make a difference? And use your abilities. And I really see that you are a soul that is using your abilities to make a change through your sound and your voice, your vibration, and just all the platforms that you're working on. It's incredible and admirable to watch and witness. So
nice. You don't know, I mean, from my side, I suppose you don't know. I just keep going to the next thing that's true, and I really do. I'm a believer in following that inner knowing and what you're supposed to do next. And I don't know why sometimes, like, I have no idea why this track came to be, but it needs to come out, and so you don't know that. Yeah, so thank you.
have to trust. And yeah, from there I wanted to say, because just holding on the track for a minute, because you got to work with a few incredible people within that track. So let's talk of the positive side of that. Yeah. And Echo Daily just wrote, the 7-minute cultural smackdown is a departure in style and tone for Áine, who gathers force in a wildly emotive spoken word rant that is reminiscent of the musical poetry of rock greats like Patti Smith. How did you feel?
That floored me.
Yeah, come on.
She's a hero, absolute hero of mine. And, you know, I saw her play 3 years ago at Byron Bay Blues Fest.
Yes.
And much of the album I just released last year, Return to the Sea. Yeah. You know, one song actually came as an inspiration after hearing Patti Smith play, and it was basically that, you know, we can make a change. Like, we can be loud and we can say the things that need to be said, and we have the power. You know, the people have the power. Like, that's Patti Smith's. So yeah, I always have really admired Patti Smith. So to hear that
being track, quoted, yeah,
it was, because she's a force. She's a powerful force. That has music like hers has changed the cultural landscape. You know, like, people sometimes, you know, talking to someone or preaching at them about, you know, you should change, or this is, you know, I'm pointing that finger and doing that, like, you're wrong, I'm right. Like, you see it now in so many ways right now in the time that we're in. That doesn't work, you know. But sometimes one line in a song, or one quote in a movie, or one artistic piece can move people to change, you know. And I suppose to think that exists within this track for even one person is the reason I'm releasing it, you know. I mean, my manager, like, ages ago was like, so you have to have a purpose. Why are you releasing it? You know, just to get me in the head of what this is about. And I was like, well, if it shifts one person's belief a little bit further towards equality, then
I've done my job.
Done my job.
So talk about some of the people that you collaborated with in that track.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was amazing to work with James Boundy. Obviously, I feel really honoured, and he really honoured the rawness and the sentiment of the original, what I had kind of intended of it, and he didn't really want to change it in any way. He just wanted to preserve that and allow that to come out. And then Emily Waramara, who I've toured with for, we went to Ireland last year, and we've toured.
How did you get to tour with Emily? How did you get to tour with her? Can we just go off that track for a minute? Yeah, well,
really interesting, actually. Her manager, who now manages me, when Emily released Black Smoke, this is like 5 years ago maybe, I was touring through Queensland at the time, and she got in touch and just was like, I know you sing in language, Emily sings in language, I just think it would be this nice synergy. And from that, Emily and I just, like, you know, we met in the toilet at, you know, the Milk Bar in Brisbane, I think it was, and we were just like, I know you, you know. And so we've crossed paths a lot over the and always been, you know, at different festivals, jumped up on each other's sets, or been that. And then in the last probably the last 2 years, just more of a concerted effort to plan things properly together as the stories, the stories of both of our cultural stories from where we come from as well. Like Emily has these amazing mermaid stories, and the saltwater people from the Northern Territory. She's from Groit Islands originally. Okay. And so where I come from on the west coast of Ireland, we have all these legends of the Selkies, which are like seal people. And so her and I have always talked, and her mom as well, beautiful Angela, about these, the similarities. Like some of the stories are like really, really incredibly similar, but they're centuries old from different parts of the world. And yeah, so I mean that also, I suppose, brought us together in wanting to collaborate. And then she's the first person when I recorded that I just kind of the whole track came out in this one. I don't even know, just I wrote it in one sitting, and it just kind of came out. And then I just was like, I'm just going to record it into GarageBand, just like send it. And I sent it to her, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this, I sent it to her and a beautiful friend of mine, Dobby, who's a hip hop artist from Sydney. And I was like, does it need to be more rap? Does it need to be more spoken word? Does it need to, like, where does it need to go? And both of them were just like, don't touch it. Like, exactly how it is the way it's meant to be, and just bring that out as it is.
And she got to feature on the track.
Yeah. So then, of course, I said to her, do you want to sing on it? And I just, incredible contribution from her in all the right places, that Bandy and I like thought the track was full, and then we're like, no, it obviously needed that. And then Dinawan is part of the Banyara Culture Collective, and we asked him to play the Yadaki, the didgeridoo, on the track as well. And that was another, just, he did it in one take, and everything on it was like beyond perfect. And Bandy and I are just gone. Everything just kind of
it's like there was other powers working with you.
100%. Yeah. Belle, who's in the Belle Budden, who's in the Banyara Culture Collective as well, is like, when you leave room for spirit, these things happen, and you could feel. Yeah, I mean, even in the writing of it, like I literally was shaking when it was coming out, and I didn't stop shaking until like the last word was done, and I was like, I think that means it's done. So it definitely came from a very deep place.
Where did you connect with the Banyara Collective? Because it seems like you have been connecting with the ancestors and the spirits, which, how you have these experiences. So where did that, how did you cross paths?
So when I moved up here first, it was a good friend of mine is friends with Belle as well. And so connected Belle and I together. And for whatever reasons, we sort of didn't get to meet up kind of in the first few months that I was here. But then when I played Mulla Music Festival, Belle kept being mistaken for me, because I had sang with Yiramal, because when I was living down in Victoria, Yiramal was living in Victoria. He's back up in Arnhem Land now, and him and I were again put on a lot of double bills together with that connection of language and story and song. And so him and I toured a lot together down in Victoria. And when he was playing up here, I was singing with him, and people thought it was Belle on stage. And she finally, she came up to me, she's like, okay, the third time I got mistaken for you. I was like, I have to talk to this woman. This is like this is a sign. So then I suppose I just went along to everything that I was invited to, as in supporting them on NAIDOC Week or different things, or helping with sound and them with me as well. They really appreciated getting to know my culture and my stories and different things. And then in this house, I suppose, will be the first kind of formal collaboration that we did on that track.
The film clip is incredible. Please, listeners, go and check out the film clip. It's beautiful.
And again, that was sort of, spirit took over that too. We didn't have a huge plan for that. It just kind of evolved on the day in this most beautiful experience. And so I think that's been a beautiful connection with Banyara Culture Collective, is that it's a real cultural exchange. It's not me. I think
making, you're also giving.
I think for me, and for them as well, we both. I get it a lot here with my Irish culture and Irish identity. There's so many people that have a history of Irish heritage, and they don't know how to explore that or find that, and so and they want to connect into it. So when they meet someone who's Irish, they're like, oh, I need to know more, and I need to know this, and my great grandmother was this, and my this and that, and sometimes it's overwhelming, because you're just like, God, I'm just here trying to do it and give my piece when I'm performing and everything. I'm trying to share all that and everything, and it can sometimes feel like Delta has Delta K has
Delta K is from Banyara Collective. Yeah.
And Delta is it's like cultural farming. They just try to take these bits, and sometimes people's intention isn't to do that. They're trying to find out more, and they're just seeking, and so I think from both of us have been subject to that similar thing. So when we approach other people's culture, I know I do try to just sit and listen for as long as I can, and not try to take, because I have my own, I have, and that's the powerful thing, is I have my own culture to explore and feel into. So when I see them dancing and being powerful in theirs, it ignites more in me. Do you know what I mean? It's a beautiful, and same for them, I'm sure. When they see me and my power doing my thing as well, it's an affirmation of what they're doing as well.
Well, talking about where you've come from, you grew up around storytelling, and your father was a musician, Sean, isn't it?
Yeah, Sean. Yeah.
And so, was he a big influence in who you are today, or was there other people that were influences along the path?
Yeah, huge. I mean, I think single most influence in what I do would definitely have to be my dad. And when I sent him this recent track, he just kind of was like, yes, as in all his years of hard work and, seeping everything, it's obviously seeped in. Yeah. So, and, my dad, not only being an incredible musician, really, his roots are in traditional Irish music. So we grew up with a sense of culture, from the get-go. And these tunes and songs that are passed on through an oral tradition mostly, nowadays people write music and read music. But, my dad comes from a generation where they didn't. And so he taught us all to learn by ear and to listen and to tune in to a bank of melody that's been passed on from generations to generations to generation. I mean, these tunes are thousands and thousands of years old, and we're still playing them. And there's something so special about that,
isn't it? Yeah, mystical and magical about that.
Yeah. So I suppose an honor of where we come from has always been part of who we are, and then just to have that musical bank of melody and in that is incredible. And then he sought out a lot of old Irish poetry and set it to music. That's his passion, I suppose. So he dug through and trawled through incredible books and libraries and wherever, just to invigorate words from a long time ago, and And one of his passion projects has been the work of John Boyle O'Reilly, who was a convict who was sent out to Australia on the last convict ship, the Hougoumont. And he ended up escaping in this amazing, it was called the Catalpa. The ship came from Boston and freed all these Irish political prisoners, but he lived with the Indigenous people in Fremantle for a few weeks while that happened, and his interactions with all that have also always been from a very young age. Those stories have been a part of my knowledge and what I know. And so I suppose my dad definitely would be a huge influence. I mean, my mom listened to like John Baez and Buffy St. Marie and all the my dad was strictly like traditional Irish music. I remember producer of his was over and I was talking to him about Bob Marley, and my dad's like, who's Bob Marley? It's pretty funny. So my mom had a much more of a modern influence, and then probably more the feminist literature and the Maya Angelou and amazing writers and stuff that all came from my mom. So my dad with a real deep sense of tradition and where we came from, and incredible stories. He's an amazing storyteller, my dad too. So and then with my mom, I suppose we got a whole other influence.
Were they together or did they live in the same?
Yeah, they separated when I was around 7. And my mom moved back to America. She's from America originally and lived in Ireland for about 20 years. And I mean, that alone was pretty amazing, because at a young age, we traveled back and forth between America and Ireland, kind of like people travel between, houses now. And we had I suppose quite a world experience at very young ages as well.
Yeah. Because you've done a lot of work supporting the gender diversity in the music industry, and especially at the moment, you currently wrote a letter to the Irish president. Have I got it right?
Yes.
And you got a response.
Yes.
So another thing on your path that you actually have spoken up, and I also was listening to the Vagina Conversations.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my goodness. And you were brought to tears. I mean, how vulnerable your sharing was in being a mother and your journey along that. So I'll let you take either one of those statements where you want to go. But really important.
Big.
Yeah, really important for women today, especially, there's a lot coming up. I think at the moment, what we're experiencing is almost like the cup is being shaken and everything is coming up to the surface. Collective, worldwide, we're experiencing something together. And so all these issues are starting to really no longer be hidden. The truth needs to be told now. So, the fact that you're speaking out and able to so vulnerably share both these issues, again, admirable again. Where did this come from? Because it sounds, to see you in tears during the Vagina Conversation, there's some root there that is being ruffled, shaken up.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, my mom has been a feminist from the start. So we always had, a good dose of that. With the gender report, I suppose I'll start there and then move backwards. I was part of the musicians movement here in Australia. That was probably about 3-4 years ago when that conversation started coming out. And when that conversation was happening here in Australia, I kind of was like, I looking at Ireland being like, when are we going to have this conversation? Because if Australia is bad, I knew Ireland was like really, really bad with a lot of the issues on gender parity, on radio, on festival lineups, on labels, on in the media being represented as success stories, whatever. Like I was kind of looking at Australia being like, it's kind of bad here, but you've not been to Ireland yet, And then touring back there in the last few years, every time I go back and you look at festival lineups and you look at the radio and you look, and just sitting there going like, how come no one is having a conversation that there are like 50 dudes on a festival lineup and 2 women, and we're okay with this, you know? Yeah. And when the Me Too movement happened again all over the world, it missed Ireland. Like there was one theatre director that came under fire, but then in general missed over Ireland. And you know, part of the reason that I started playing music in Australia again, well, a huge part of it is that I found a supportive group of women to play music here, and were very supportive of me starting again. I stopped playing music in Ireland because of the toxic male music industry that so many of us have put up with for so many years in Ireland. And playing music in Melbourne, I found a collective of women that were really supportive, so that even if all these things are happening in the music industry, which happen here and they happen in America, they happen everywhere, you know, anywhere where there's power and control, you have this issue. And but I felt this amazing group of women that were playing, that even if that was happening, I felt like there was this supportive network, so I could play. And as a mother, I could play music, whereas I didn't feel safe at all in the situations myself in Ireland playing music. So to be a mom, having my kids part of that space as well, just felt like not possible. Yeah. So my publicist Linda, who I've worked with for years in Ireland, also witnessed how many female acts she has versus male acts, and how many success stories there were for men and how few success stories there were for women. And so during the time of COVID, she reached out and just said, I've been compiling this information. And basically, she didn't want to stand up with the information alone. And really, I have the privilege of earning a living over here. So the backlash of me standing up and, you know, the possibility of being blacklisted off radio and sort of silenced, I felt like it was a risk I could take from here, whereas my female colleagues that are still in Ireland, like I know myself, if I didn't have power to earn over here, there's no way I would feel comfortable speaking up on my own in Ireland about it. But it's been extremely powerful because, you know, a lot of Irish women, that we've all been feeling this for years. Like we've all felt, so many of us are making music abroad. You know, even I have so many friends that are outside of Ireland, women that are making their livings abroad. And we've felt it for years and not been able to kind of have the data to say this is what it is. It's just been our feelings. And you know, in any conversation about women's rights, if you start with feelings, then you just get dismissed as being you know, emotional, all of that. So we finally had the data to say this is a massive exclusion. I mean, the data came back as majority of the radio stations were between 90 and 100% male playlisting. There's one radio station that had 50-50 parity, and that's RTE, which is the national broadcaster. And all the other radio stations really struggled to get anywhere beyond like 90% in their male playlisting, which just shows, you know, like it's not just the radio. Like, I mean, we could have done that report on festival lineups. We could have done it on label management. We could have done it on anything, and it would show the exact same disparity, because that's just like, that's a small part of the ecosystem that is very much male dominated. And then the same time as our report came out, the Misha Fosta hashtag started happening, and in Irish, Misha Fosta is Me Too. And so in the traditional Irish music scene and the folk scene, all the stories of women that, you know, the sad part for me is, like, I was making music in Ireland 20 years ago and it stopped me from making it. I had the opportunity to move out here and start making music again. And I'm like, in those 20 years, how many women were powerhouses in what they're doing and could be incredible artists and gave up because of the sexual misconduct that is rife in the music scene over there. It's a given. I mean, even my last few times going home to tour, even in this day and age where this stuff is all being talked about, it's so blatant and it's so there, and it's so much a part of what is accepted just to play music. And it just like the conversation about what is acceptable and not acceptable didn't make it until these last few months, and I'm honored to be part of it. I'm sad that it's carried on for this many generations, and I wish that I had spoke about it 20 years ago so that these young women wouldn't be facing what they're facing now. But right now, the strength amongst the Irish women in music is so strong. Like, I feel like we've all connected on another level that we've never been able to connect on before, because the system has kind of pushed us apart from each other. And the start of that, I mean, I know an interview I did recently on the report, they were like, oh, so why do you think it's, like this and whatever, and what do you think the future is? And I was like, well, we only got the rights to our female reproductive parts 2 years ago. So like, until we were actually considered, responsible and until we were actually allowed to have authority over our own bodies and our futures, I don't think this conversation about us on the radio was ever gonna come out. So I kind of feel like I was part of the repeal movement, which is the vagina conversations that I think you saw. I was part of the conversations around that. I'm part of the global team that were working overseas to fly Irish women home that could vote. So we did fundraising over here to get as many women home to vote as we could. So it was because you can't vote from overseas. So we just basically fundraised to get anyone that was eligible. And you have to have been living and working in Ireland within the last 12 months to have been able to vote. So someone like me couldn't go home to vote. So like, we just had to find as many people we could get home to vote. So that was our kind of like mission. And my conversation in the Vagina Monologues was about the long-term effects of that, the long-terms, what has been passed down to my great-grandmothers, my grandmother, my mum, my aunties, my sisters, my friends, the conversations around contraception that we all grew up in, the conversations around keeping a family together at all costs, and I was a victim of domestic abuse, and my children, and a lot of that is around the narrative on what the Catholic Church has filtered down into Irish society. And even though, like, I grew up in a really progressive, like, left-leaning family, and around all of that, it's what you're handed down as a cultural narrative, and it's what your sort of shame and guilt and everything that like is inside of you. So the repeal for me was loaded with so much, and I think for all Irish women, like, I mean, the video of that final yes, you can look it up on YouTube, when the final yes got counted in Dublin Castle. And the roar of Irish women in that yes is something I will never forget in my life. Like, I stayed up till 3 o'clock. I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning to watch it live here. And because it held so much more than just the choice of whether we were allowed to have an abortion or not. It held all the years that we've been oppressed as Irish women and held down, and all the years of guilt and shame that have just been like piled on top of Irish women for so long, for like the list goes on and on and on of things that we've accepted. And so so I kind of feel like the report in Ireland wasn't able to come out really like on the gender disparity until we start looking at the deep-seated roots and causes of why there is such a bias towards like male artists, male musicians, male poets, male writers, male directors, male everything in Ireland is very much focused on that. Sorry, that was a rant now. There you go.
It really gives us some understanding. So you're a mother of 3 children.
3, yeah.
And did you come over with them from Ireland, or conceived one of them here, or they all came with you?
Yeah, my youngest was conceived here. Yeah, was born here. And yeah, we came over as a family. The global financial crisis hit Ireland pretty hard, and their dad was out of work. So we came over, as kind of economic immigrants, really, to try to provide for the kids. Really was the future goal. For me, it was also, there had been a separation and incidents of violence back in Ireland, and he had promised, like the grass is always greener on the other side, I suppose, and if we just do this, everything. And I look back now and I was like so naive and very young to think that changing countries and moving away from every support network I ever had was a wise thing to do. But yeah, it just got worse as soon as we got here. And so that's how we ended up here.
I mean, I'm not going to talk about myself on this podcast, but let's just say I have a lot of empathy in what you're saying right now. And I've had a similar experience where I was also promised and moved to another place and taken away from my family, and it got worse. So I know the strength that it takes to leave that situation. So I can completely empathize with you. So you left that situation and you were able to move with your kids up the coast, and you're living in, I want to get it right, a Bedford bus from 1966.
Yeah.
This is when the journey, you start to find your worthiness and you start to really step into your power, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I had started playing music a bit in Australia, I suppose, before the end of the relationship. But I took a massive leap of faith sort of into the unknown. I knew I was going to be, because of court cases and everything that was happening, I knew I couldn't fly back home to Ireland, really. And I was like, okay, well, we can be the victims of this and sit in a house here and in our victimhood, and I can be imprisoned in a way, or I can rewrite the story and turn it into an adventure for me and the kids. And so I took the adventure. And I remember being, at one of the darkest of my life, and a friend of mine, I was like, I just want to buy a bus and take off. And my friend, beautiful Sarah Carroll, was like, I have a friend that has a 1966 Bedford bus and it has Tassie oak floors. And I was like, I want that bus. Yeah. And Dougie, whose bus it was, when I did call him, he was like, you don't want this bus, right? This is 9 ton. There's no power steer and it's like a truck. He was like, let me help you find a Toyota Coaster or like a modern bus. And I was like, nah, that's my bus. And so he helps me do it up with bunk beds at the back for the kids. And we toured around Australia kind of on just a loop of me playing gigs and I was a teacher at the time. And so I had no business sort of like setting off into the distance in a bus. I had a stable job. The kids were, happy, but I just said, we needed to rewire our brains in a way and rewrite the story, the kids and myself. And also living on a bus, you have no choice but to be a unit. And I'm sure with yourself as well, like it's hard. Like, I remember the first picture that a friend of mine took with just me and the kids. I was like, this is so weird, because your idea of what the unit is was like a mom and a dad and the kids. And so the bus in itself kind of helped us create what our unit is now, you know, me and the 3 kids, and we're like a force to be reckoned with, the 4 of us, you know, now. And living and traveling and adventuring and touring and meeting, you know. I think we adopted a family all around Australia, because everyone was like, what is this mad Irish woman doing on the bus with 3 kids playing music? Like, and we have so many beautiful places where we'd stop off along the way. So the kids gained uncles and aunties and cousins, and this beautiful flow that we call life now. I mean, my eldest was heading into high school, and so I really felt that she needed settling, and after touring so much, the Northern Rivers were kind of the place that we would always spend extra time at on the tour diary. So we did that for kind of 4 years. There's this kind of loop, and we'd always spend extra time up here. So I just was like, I think this is where we need to settle. So yeah, so we're here, and I tour, you know, we adventure in different ways now, you know. I mean, not now obviously with COVID, but you know, they've been all around Europe with me and America, and we tour as a little unit still, I suppose.
And the latest album you had to do, Return to Sea, is that where you did the crowdfunding, and you were at a point where you had a few days left to make up this amount of money? And I'm mentioning this because I think it really shows your decision. You could be a victim, or you can make a choice to do something and take action here and make a change. And I've watched a fascinating interview with you. I can't remember who it was with, but you were at that point where you were explaining that you had 3 days left and you had walked along the beach, and, you know, you were just describing, actually, I think it was an interview, and you were describing the emotions that you went through that gave you that idea of what you were going to do next. Because it's not something that just happens. It's a process that you have to recognize and listen and be aware, don't you?
So
Otherwise
true.
you can fall into, I've had it, I'm a victim, I give up, I'm a single mum. It's not possible, right?
Yeah. And it's so easy to fall into that story of like, you know, who do I think I am? Like, what do I think I'm doing here? Like, who gives me the right to try to step out of my lane and do something totally, you know, different? And yeah, I had crowdfunded my first album, and I suppose at that time crowdfunding was a very new thing as well. And so I didn't really have much of a fan base, and it crowdfunded, and it was really easy. Like, it was just kind of like, okay, this is easy. So when it came to my second album a few years later, I was like, okay, I just do what I did last time, and it does the thing. And I was about $9,000 down, and it was one of those ones where if you don't reach the target on time, you don't get any of it. And I was like, I don't know what I've done, all the things that I did last time, and they're not working, basically. So either A, I'm really crap and nobody wants to listen to my music, right?
Which can bellow really loud, can't it? It can be like,
oh yeah,
no one likes me anymore. I'm old. I'm done.
And they didn't like your first album. You know, they don't want this, and here you are asking for money again, and you know, no, like that's loud, right? Or else I can figure out what is going on here. And so I kind of I had noticed, it was actually someone messaged me, and she had originally crowdfunded my first album, and she followed me on Instagram and Facebook, and she's on my emailing list, right? This lovely lady. So like you'd say a fan, a super fan or whatever. And she messaged me with like 2 days to go and was like, are you doing a crowdfund again? And I was like, how do you not? I feel like I've been slamming social media. Like, I feel like I've been the most annoying person in the world. And I kind of was like, how did you not know it? Anyway, I was like, yes. But that made me start thinking, you know, that, and I looked at my email, you know, list thing, and it tells you how many people have opened it. And I was like, it's not because they haven't seen it and don't want it. Some of them haven't seen it because now we deal with spam filters, Facebook ads, and, you know, like all these algorithms that didn't exist 3 years ago when I was doing it. So I kind of in my head was like, okay, there's other things at play here. So I could fall into this, you know, I'm not good enough thing, or I can try to get the message out that I am crowdfunding and I have these new songs, and if people want it, and will they listen to it? And I was on the beach and I was running in, and I was, you know, feeling like this is never going to happen kind of thing. And then I was like, you don't give up, Áine. Like you're not a quitter, all right? And if you're going to go down, you're going to go down, you know, with a
fight.
a fight, exactly. Yeah. So I just was like, the thing that way, it was new at the time, which now, you know, COVID times, everyone is at it, but Facebook Live streaming was new at the time. And so I just was like, all right, if I just sit online and play music until this crowdfunds, my theory behind it was just, if people hear the songs and they connect with it, like if that happened to me, I would want to order the album and support it because it's just a pre-order of the album. And so I thought, at least I can do that. You know, I can't spend thousands on Facebook ads and change algorithms and, you know, get someone to fix spam filters. Like, I'm not capable of that. But what I can do is, you know, give it 110% until the end. And so it ended up being a 24-hour stream, and then it crowdfunded. But it was the most beautiful experience probably of my creative life in a way, because I got to see the power of social media in a beautiful way, and it changed me in that way, because I was like, you know, social media isn't just this like dirty word and this thing that like you have to do for your job. It's a way of gathering community and sharing stories and being together when you can't be together. Yeah. And I think in COVID times, everyone has learned that now. Do you know what I mean? Sure. For me, the 24-hour stream was like, wow, this is like, it's actually wholesome. There's some beautiful things. And yes, we can all get distracted down dark, deep holes of social media as well. And it can be unhealthy, but I got to see this beautiful connection, energy, and this way of, you know, sharing and healing and stories, and people's stories to me after that 24 hours, you know, you just never know. And that's why I do it every Sunday, and I've done it for 111 weeks now.
You're up to 111 virtual cup of teas in class. Yes. And today is the 11th of August, which I love that we're chatting today.
Oh,
so
but yeah,
tell everyone like about the virtual cup of teas that you could have guests on, and it's in the buzz.
Yeah. So it's because of people's stories that I was like, oh, I have to do this. Like, I have to turn up at a regular time every week. And, you know, when I was touring and everything was crazy and busy, I'd still just like put the phone on and sit down and have a quick chat. You know, sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's like 4 hours, you know what I mean? But you just don't know what it's like in day-to-day life as well. You don't know what people's struggles are or what they're facing or who they are. And music is such a powerful medium to help and be of service. You know, I think for me, like, that is where I find, you know, even when I was teaching or whatever I've been doing in life, when I feel I'm being of service, like that's my thing in life, you know.
Yeah.
And when I you know, hear stories of people who are having a really rough time in those 24 hours, and that 24-hour stream kept them going, you know, whatever was going on in their life. Or, you know, people that tuned in and met other people online and have started friendships and different things across the world, you know. And I was like, oh, yeah. So every Sunday I do a virtual cup of tea, and up until 100, they were going out on Facebook every Sunday. And now now I've moved it over to Patreon. And it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful community there. And for like $3 a month, you support an artist, and they give you rewards in return or whatever. It's kind of like a more wholesome version of crowdfunding, because it's like this long-term relationship. And I love that. I mean, that's what the cup of teas are about. They're just about community and connecting. And yes, I have songs and you can request some and we can chat and all that sort of stuff. But it's really just about having that community time. And there's some people who have been there every single cup of tea, from the start. And there's some people that are there one, every 50. And I welcome all of them, and everyone welcomes them. And for me, the Patreon it's just, I mean, it's the reason We Call You Now is even coming out, because little donation from a group of people a month meant that I had the money to record, to shoot a video, and to, release it. And without that, there's no way the track could be coming out, So, I mean, I've become like a Patreon addict now. Like I don't know, I support like 6 artists. I'm like, I love it. It's just a deeper way to kind of support, a few podcasts that I love, and different things that bring me joy every week, for the price of a cup of coffee. Like I can, forego a cup of coffee to get more joy out of someone's music or podcast or whatever they're doing in life that is of service. You know what I mean?
Of service and helping creative souls, isn't it?
Yeah, so the cup of teas they're pretty magical. And I did a 24-hour one at 100 to celebrate the first one. And I had, I don't know, 50 guests or so on it. And Bandy helped do the sound. And it was another one of those moments where, like, we got this great film crew in. Noli did the film, and we had this whole thing, and everything was set up, and it was all magical. And then right when we pressed live, we realized that the big fancy camera kind of overrode the computer system to be able to invite guests on screen. And so again, I was faced with, oh my God, like, here it goes. It's all destroyed. You're an idiot. Why did you think you would be able to do this? You've got like 50 people all over the world. And in the end, like, I had them all call on my phone, and I just like held them up on my phone to the microphone. And it was actually, a mistake ended up being the most endearing part of the 24 hours, because I'm holding my friends up on the phone next to the microphone, and it just was this like gorgeous, I don't know. Yeah, lovely.
No, just holding them in space. You must be becoming a professional of staying up 24 hours.
Everyone is like, how do you do it? I know. Everyone's like, how do you do it? What do you, and I don't know. I think maybe I have like a throat and lungs of steel that I can keep singing for 24 hours. Fair enough. But when you're passionate about something and it's your calling, and it's who you are, like, time kind of doesn't exist. For everyone else, it kind of exists, like, oh, it's 24 hours or whatever. But I could have kept going for another, I don't know, probably another 24 hours. I probably won't try it though, because everyone around me will think I'm totally daft.
There's children in the bus as well, I imagine.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, Mom, 24 is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
what an
I don't know.
Mom.
When you're on your path, like the door is open. It's what's meant to be. You just you turn up, and then it happens. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I love that saying, where energy goes.
Oh,
where attention goes, energy flows. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. Yes, I love that.
Where attention goes, energy flows. We have covered a lot here today, and we've come up to how do you feel? Like, we have really, I think, represented, what an incredible woman you are, and there's more to see. And I think, from who you are today, you're even becoming an even better version of yourself moment to moment as you step into your worthiness and your power, and are not, you're really not afraid to share the truth. which is shown definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's always fear. I think to say to people that it's not terrifying kind of makes other people feel like you can't do it because you have fear. I think it's just, what do you do with the fear when it comes up? So like, it's a process of kind of, you know, being like, okay, I see you, fear, but I'm still going to do it. And those moments become easier to like overcome each time.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
I totally
and so
get what you're saying. I mean, and it's a really important point you made, because it's not that the fear and those negative comments don't come into my space still, or your space. You know, women often say, you know, how do you do what you do with 4 children? And it's not that I don't have those moments when I can't get out of bed or I'm tired, or that, you know, it's about I'm catching it quicker now, and I'm recognizing you don't serve me where I'm going. Thank you. You can be sitting over there, but I'm going to go this way, you know.
Yeah. So
It's
great.
really nice that you recognize that, you acknowledge that. So people aren't going, oh, she's amazing, you know, that's for her, but I'm going to step over here and be quiet, because that's not what we're saying here today.
Yeah, that the fear will come up, and there's always things to overcome, even when you think you see someone completely in their power and all that sort of stuff. There are moments where I am completely there and I have no fucks given about anything, but there's other moments where I'm like battling all the same things that we all battle as humans, you know. And I think that it's we're all in this ship together, just trying to figure it out. Hey.
For sure. Are there 3 things that you can share with us that help you, you know, get out of that fear emotion and just be able to step into your power? Are there some rituals or practices that you do on a weekly basis that help you?
Oh,
a cup of tea.
Yeah,
that's one of mine.
Remember to drink tea and eat food. Sometimes like I get so like, and then my brain goes foggy and I think I'm like the worst person in the world, and then I'm like, I didn't eat today, did I? So like those little self-care things they're actually really important, because I can get like hyper focused on something and just like go. Having supportive, you know, I think it's really important to have supportive people who get what you're about, who you can bounce. You know, like even last night I called Emily. I was like, who do I think I am releasing this track? You know, I had that moment. Emily's like, I got your back, you know, and I'd be the same for her every time she has, because the doubts come up, and it's important to have, you know, there's always going to be people in your life that want your light to be dimmer, because in some way it makes them feel safer in whatever they're doing and who they are in life, and it can be totally subconsciously. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not out there to make you feel bad. And you know, friendships that have been around for a long time, or family, or different things that they're confronted maybe by the bigness or the you know what you're trying to do. And so I just think it's always important to have, you know, a core group of people that really get they really get you and get who you are, and that when you're taking big bold steps, that you have this sort of like squad, you know, squad behind you. And for me, they come from all different walks of life, and it's not necessarily all creatives in my life, but having some really strong, you know, allies on whatever your path is important. And then I suppose it's also, you know, I mean, I say it in the track, I suppose, remember who you are, and remember all that you've overcome, and remember, you know, all the things that there's an internal fire in all of us that is way more powerful than we give ourselves credit for, you know. And I think sometimes we can get distracted by what everyone else thinks or what everyone else says or what we think we should be doing or who we think we should be for people. But that really touching back in with who you are, and that inner knowing is, you know, that gut instincts, you know, knowing, whatever you want to call it, like it's that, for me it's like this fire inside, and I guide myself as in, like, what's the next thing to do or the next thing to do on what feels right there, and every time I ignore that, it's always a disaster. You know what I mean? Like every time I try to overthink it, you know, I try to override that fire with my thoughts, like my brain or what I've filtered in from
rational
the world. It's always a disaster. Like it never ends well. But every time and business decisions, life decisions, kid decisions, romantic decisions, whatever, like all of them, like if I touch in with that, then it's always right. So remember it's there and who you are, and that we all have that fire.
Beautiful. How can we support you and connect? How can people connect to Patreon and what's happening at the moment with the virtual cup of teas? Do you want to direct them to some places?
Patreon.com/Áine Tyrrell Music, which is AINE TYRRELL. That's where Patreon happens, and I do a preview on Facebook every night, because I know for some people $3 a month is, you know, not possible. There was a time in my life where that was impossible with 3 kids, and I don't want to not serve the people that also need that. So there's a preview that goes out on Facebook every Sunday as well for like 15-20 minutes, and then I do the full concert over on Patreon. And you know, for me, it's also like a model of sort of soundness, like, you know, whatever you can afford, if you want to contribute to it, that's great. But I'm also there in other spaces if you can't, you know, and I think, you know, that it's, those on Patreon have supported the release of this track for all the other people that can't. But there's other people that need to hear it, not just the Patreon people. Do you know what I mean? Yep. So on Instagram and Facebook and websites, and
we'll share all the links.
Those places. Yep. But I suppose for the more in-depth sharing and more, you know, of who I am and what I do, Patreon is sort of the space that I offer more of that to, because it's just a beautiful. It's a beautiful thing that creates between, you know, musicians and people who want to support their music.
Let's finish up now. We call you now. It's been released tomorrow, and there's a film clip coming out. Is that right?
Yes.
Tomorrow? Yeah. Where are they going to find this track?
All the places: YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. My website, if you'd like to support it directly by buying the download, my website would be the best place for that, or iTunes. But it'll be on all the platforms, and the video will be on YouTube. Yeah.
Right, beautiful. Do you want to finish up with sharing a song, or do you want to share a statement about, you know, the song coming out? How do you want to wrap it up today?
Maybe I'll do a song.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I won't do that one because that's like 8 minutes.
No, that's 7 minutes smackdown, and you have to go check it out. It will be released.
I'll grab my banjo. I'll play a tune on that.
Yeah, I inspire you all to get listening to this track and play it on replay. I love the banjo. Such a beautiful instrument. And that's the instrument that your dad played.
Yeah, he's a tenor banjo player, same as this, which is an Irish banjo. It has 4 strings, whereas like most of the banjos you see around our 5-string, like American banjos. With so this is a tenor banjo, they're called. And is that coming out for you?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, lovely. This is Hope Will See Me Through, and it's on Return to the Sea. And I wrote it when I was living in Victoria. After we had got the bus, actually, we were down the Great Ocean Road down near the Wye River fires when those went through, which now seem really tiny, but at the time they were massive. But compared to this last summer here in Australia, they were quite devastating. And being Irish, I suppose I knew nothing about bushfires. And so when I was searching up just really how to be safe and whether we were safe where we were, I just kept on the Google searching of, what happens in bushfires, and came across this beautiful fact about a grass tree, which is a native plant to Australia, which lays dormant on the forest floor like all the time, but when a fire comes through, it sends off a shoot, and then the rain that comes after the fire makes this beautiful blossom. And I just thought it was the most amazing analogy for life at the time, that we go through these dark, really difficult, fiery times, and then there's a relief of rain that comes at some stage, and then this flower emerges that we never knew was going to be there, And I suppose it's a song for where we are right now, all collectively, all over the world. We're in the fire, and there will be the rain that comes through at some stage, and I think as a collective around the world, there'll be this beautiful flower that comes out, but we don't know what that is yet. But we all hang on for hope, which is where the song has come from. If I step outside, will I burn in the inferno? Will I freeze all of tomorrows? If I wager warmth away, will the regrowth ever look the same? Or will the forest be forever altered? I don't know how to pray, but I'm down on my knees. I don't know what to say. I am begging, come see me through. Hope will see me through. Hope will see me through. If I raise a white flag, am I putting myself in the fire line? Will I be the ash or what I held dear? Only way around is to go straight through it. I can already feel the embers falling. I don't know how to pray, but I'm down on my knees. I don't know what to say. I am begging, come see me through. Hope will see me through. Hope will see me through. Oh, billows rise to glory. Orange skies are warning, don't go that way. But I am gone, I am gone. Oh, at the heart of the grass tree, I survive, even thrive in the fire. And when the rain comes, I'll flower. When the rain comes, I'll flower. I don't know how to pray, but I'm down on my knees. I don't know what to say. I I am begging, come see me through, hopeless, see me through, hopeless, see me through.
Oh, thank you so much, Áine Tyrrell. It's beautiful. I actually listened to that song recently, and it was one of the songs. I mean, many of your songs touched me, but that was one of the songs for this time that really resonated with me and brought me, tears to my eyes. It is a very unknown time, and I think that we need faith and hope. And I don't mean in a religious way, but just that hope of that fire that you're talking about within us all.
I since actually the bushfires, I haven't done a gig or a live stream where it hasn't been requested. And I was just like, so I do sort of like to play it every time, because I feel like there's so much that's going on in the world, and there's so much divisiveness on our news feeds and on our wherever we turn. There's so much, and hope is really the thing that we all have to hold on to collectively, and so many people doing it hard and struggling and all over the world right now. And so I don't know, it reminds us all back of that. So
brings us back to that love vibration. Hope. Thank you so much for being part of Love podcast.
So beautiful. Thank you so much.
It's been beautiful. Thank you.
Our space, one space, love. My space, your space. Your space, my space. Our space. My space, your space. Your space, my space. Our space. One space, love. My space, your space. Your space, my space. Our space. One space, love. One space, love. One space, love.